No one warned Daniel Carter that saving a horse could quietly tear his life apart. When he first saw her standing at the edge of the dusty lot in eastern Montana, ribs showing, head low, eyes too calm for a place like that, he felt a strange pull he couldn't explain. The auction was loud, rushed, careless. People were there to flip animals, not to care. Daniel had come only to pick up feed for his ranch. He left with a horse no one wanted. She cost him less than a used saddle. The man who sold her barely looked at Daniel when he took the cash. "She won't last long," he said, like he was talking about bad weather. Daniel nodded, though something in his chest tightened. The horse didn't fight the rope when Daniel led her away. She followed him like she had been waiting. Daniel maimed her grace during the long drive back to his ranch near Billings. She stood steady in the trailer, quiet, breathing slow. Too slow. He told himself she was just tired. Rescue cases always looked worse before they looked better. That's what he believed as the sun dipped low and the road stretched empty in front of him. At the ranch, Daniel eased her into a small pasture away from the others. Grace stepped onto the grass and froze. Her ears turned sharply, not toward the other horses, but toward the old cottonwood trees lining the far fence. Daniel watched her muscles tense, like she recognized something, or remembered it. The moment passed, and she lowered her head to graze. Daniel shook it off. Horses carried scars. That didn't mean trouble. That night, Daniel barely slept. The wind picked up after midnight, rattling the barn doors. Around 2 in the morning, he heard it, a sharp, broken sound that cut through the dark. Not a whinny, not a scream, something else. He pulled on his boots and ran outside with a flashlight, heart pounding harder with every step. Grace was on her feet, but she was shaking. Her eyes rolled white when the beam hit her face. Daniel moved slow, speaking softly, the way he always did. "It's okay, girl. You're safe." The words felt thin the moment he said them, because Grace didn't look like a horse that believed in safety. When she finally calmed, Daniel noticed the marks along her neck, hidden under dirt and matted hair. Old rope burns, deep ones. His stomach turned. This wasn't neglect. This was something else. The next morning, Daniel called the local vet, a woman named Emily Ross. She had helped him through tough cases before. When Emily arrived, she walked around Grace once, twice, her face tightening with every step. "Where did you get her?" she asked quietly. Daniel told her about the auction, the cheap price, the warning. Emily didn't answer right away. She ran her fingers gently over Grace's scars. "These aren't from normal handling," she finally said. "Someone did this on purpose." The words settled heavy between them. Daniel felt heat rise in his chest. He had seen cruelty before, but this felt deeper, planned. Emily looked up at him, concern in her eyes that went beyond the horse. "You need to be careful," she said. "Animals like this come with history, and sometimes that history doesn't stay buried." Over the next few days, Grace refused to eat when the sun went down. She paced the fence at night, stopping always at the same spot near the cottonwoods. Daniel started keeping watch from the porch, coffee cold in his hands, listening to the dark. He began to notice other things too. The gate latch loose when he knew he had locked it. The faint smell of cigarette smoke near the pasture, though no one around him smoked. One evening, as the sky burned orange and red, Daniel saw a truck slow on the road beyond his fence. It didn't stop. It didn't need to. Grace lifted her head, ears sharp, eyes locked on the moving shape. And for the first time since bringing her home, Grace stepped backward, away from Daniel, away from the barn, toward the trees. The moment I stepped inside the stone cabin, the air felt heavier, like the walls were holding secrets that did not want to stay quiet. This was not some lonely hideout in the mountains. This place was alive with purpose. Screens covered one wall, glowing softly in the dim light. Cameras showed pastures, roads, loading ramps, and horse trailers from angles I had never seen before. Another wall was covered with photographs, pinned close together like pieces of a broken puzzle. I walked closer, my chest tightening with every step. They were my horses: Estrella, Viento, Paloma, Rio, Sombra. Horses I had raised from foals, horses I had trained, trusted, and loved. There they were, caught under harsh lights, being led into unfamiliar trailers, standing in pens far from home. My hands started to shake. "You've been watching them get taken?" I asked, my voice cracking. Dr. Catalina Reyes shook her head slowly. "I've been tracking the people who take them. Watching is not the same as stopping. Not yet." She handed me a thick folder. Inside were papers that made my stomach turn. Registration records, DNA results, sale receipts. Every document looked official. Every ranch name was fake. My jaw tightened until it hurt. "These papers were used to sell your horses at illegal auctions," she said. "They did not disappear. They were stolen, targeted, and resold." I dropped into a chair, the weight of it all crushing down on me. "Why my ranch?" I asked. "Why me?" "You are not the only one," she said, pointing to a large map covered in red marks. "This stretches across 10 states. They choose ranchers with strong bloodlines, but small enough operations that the losses do not make headlines." My grandmother's voice echoed in my head. "Horses see the soul." Maybe that was why the Mustang had come to me. Maybe he had seen something in me I could not see anymore. Dr. Reyes picked up a photograph of a man in a suit shaking hands at a horse show. She said, "This is Vincent Ashworth, founder of Equestrian Elite Services, the biggest private horse brokerage in the West." "I know that name," I said. "They sell horses for more money than I'll ever see." "They steal horses," she corrected quietly. "Then they erase their past and sell them to the highest bidder." She pointed to another photo, this one of a hard-eyed man leaning against a truck. "Marcus Webb. He runs the field crews. He's the one who took your horses." Anger burned hot in my chest. "Why haven't they been stopped?" I asked, my voice cracking. "I went to the authorities," she said. "Ashworth has powerful friends. My reports were buried. I was fired before I could expose them. So I built this." She led me into another room filled with computers and radios. Screens flashed with GPS data, encrypted messages, and live feeds. Voices crackled softly through speakers. "They talk freely," she said. "They think no one is listening." She pressed a button, and a recording filled the room. "Mendoza's ranch is next. The stallion alone is worth a fortune if we change the bloodline. Move before winter locks us out." My blood ran cold. "They're coming back," I whispered. Dr. Reyes nodded. "Tonight." My knees weakened, and I grabbed the edge of the table. My remaining horses, my stallion, my mares, everything I had left. "This is why the Mustang brought you here," she said. "He's been watching them for months. You were never meant to face this alone." I looked out the window. The Mustang stood on a rise, still and alert, watching the valley like a guardian. "What do we do?" I asked. She opened a secure channel on one of the screens. Names filled the display. Ranchers, investigators, a few lawmen she trusted. "The FBI is ready, but they need proof of an active theft." "So you let them take my horses?" I asked, my voice tight. "No," she said firmly. "We let them try." She pointed to the ridge above the valley. "We set cameras there, audio, night scopes. When Webb's crew moves in, everything is recorded. Once they load the horses, federal agents move in." The thought of it made my chest ache. Watching my horses suffer again felt unbearable, but I knew what was at stake. "Okay," I said quietly. I'll do it." As the sun dropped behind the Colorado peaks, the valley sank into deep blue shadow. Dr. Reyes handed me a night vision scope and a recorder. "Stay close, and when it starts, don't look away." The wind whispered through the pines like a warning. The Mustang lifted his head toward the south, ears sharp, body tense. I followed his gaze, knowing the night was about to reveal a truth that could either destroy me or save everything I loved. Daniel didn't hesitate. He jumped into his truck and tore down the dirt road, headlights cutting through the night. His hands shook on the wheel, not from fear, but from the heavy weight in his chest. Grace wasn't just a rescue anymore. She was a promise he had made without realizing it. And now that promise was being stolen back. The taillights ahead flickered red, disappearing into the hills west of the ranch. Daniel followed them past the familiar land and into rough country where the road narrowed and twisted. The farther he went, the more the world seemed to close in. Trees pressed close. The air felt thick, wrong, like it carried old pain. The truck ahead finally turned off onto a barely visible trail. Daniel slowed, killing his headlights, letting the moon guide him. He parked and continued on foot, the night alive with distant insects and the soft rush of wind. Then he heard it. Grace's breathing, fast, frightened, close. The clearing opened suddenly, lit by a single hanging work light. There stood the stranger, the horse tied tight, her head pulled high in a way that forced her to stand still. Daniel saw the marks on the ground, the same cruel setup Emily had warned him about. This wasn't training, this was punishment. "Let her go," Daniel said, stepping forward. The man turned slowly, eyes cold now, no mask left. "She's mine," he replied. "Always has been." Grace thrashed when she saw Daniel, her fear mixed with hope. The man tightened the rope, and Daniel felt something inside him snap. He rushed forward, tackling the man to the ground. They struggled in the dirt, breath and fists and anger colliding. The man was strong, fueled by control and habit, but Daniel fought like someone with nothing left to lose. A sharp crack echoed through the trees. The rope post splintered. Grace pulled free. She didn't run. Instead, Grace stepped between them. The man froze, staring at the horse like he was seeing a ghost. His grip loosened. In that moment, Daniel understood. Grace wasn't just abused, she had been used to break other horses, forced to watch, forced to stand. Sirens cut through the night, growing louder. Emily had called the sheriff the moment Daniel took off. The man backed away slowly, hands raised, rage drained from his face. When deputies arrived, they cuffed him without resistance. As the clearing went quiet, Grace lowered her head and touched Daniel's shoulder with her nose. He felt tears he didn't remember earning slide down his face. The nightmare wasn't over, but it was breaking. The sun rose slowly over the hills, pale and quiet, like it was afraid to disturb what had happened. Daniel stood beside Grace in the pasture, watching the morning light touch her coat. She looked different now, still thin, still marked by the past, but the fear that once lived in every small movement had softened. She stood close to him, not because she was tied, but because she chose to be. The sheriff came later that morning with news that made Daniel's knees weak. The man had been wanted in 3 states: horse abuse, illegal training rings, animals broken and sold to buyers who never asked questions. Grace wasn't his favorite horse, she was his tool, the one who survived long enough to be used again and again. Daniel listened, anger and relief twisting together inside him. He thought about the kill pen, about how close Grace had been to disappearing forever. $200. That was all it had taken to pull her out of hell. And yet, saving her had dragged him straight into a nightmare he never saw coming. Emily visited that afternoon. She walked slowly into the pasture, careful not to rush. Grace watched her, then surprised them both by stepping forward and lowering her head. Emily smiled, tears in her eyes. "She trusts now," Emily said softly. "That doesn't happen by accident." Daniel shook his head. "I didn't fix her," he said. "She fixed herself." Emily looked at him for a long moment. "No," she replied. "She felt safe enough to try." Days passed, then weeks. Grace gained weight. Her eyes grew brighter. The nightmares didn't vanish overnight. Some nights she still startled awake, breathing hard, her body tight with memories that hadn't learned how to let go. When that happened, Daniel would sit with her in the quiet, saying nothing, just being there, until the shaking stopped. The ranch felt different now, quieter, fuller, like something broken had been set back into place. One evening, Daniel opened the gate and unclipped Grace's lead. The field stretched wide in front of her. She could have run. She could have left him standing there with an empty rope and a full heart. She didn't. Grace took a few steps, then stopped. She turned back, walked to him, and rested her forehead against his chest. Daniel closed his eyes, breath catching. In that moment, he understood something that stayed with him forever. Rescue wasn't about saving an animal. It was about standing between pain and hope and refusing to move. Grace would never be a show horse. She would never pull a crowd's applause. But every morning when Daniel walked into the pasture and she lifted her head, calm and steady, he knew the truth. Some miracles don't arrive loud. Some come thin, shaking, and almost forgotten. And sometimes, the horse you save for almost nothing ends up costing you everything you had and giving you something far greater in return.